We'll discuss about the age, Elizabethan age. That is the reign of Queen Elizabeth from 1558 to 1603. But the age continues up to 1625. Development of English drama during this period and the background of Elizabethan age. Europe in the 16th century was dominated by kings after the reign of Henry VIII, 1529 to 1539. Elizabeth I made certain that the Church of England was to remain a national Protestant institution with the monarch for supreme governor. There was no complete break with the past, but the whole balance of political and religious life in England was altered.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes,
British society dominated by which king, sir?
dominated dominated by kings. Europe in 16th century was dominated by kings. And after the reign of Henry VIII, 1529 to 1539, Elizabeth I, the reign of Queen Elizabeth started, made certain that the Church of England was to remain a national Protestant institution with the monarch for supreme governor. There was no complete break with the past, but the whole balance of political and religious life in England was altered. And consequently, the balance of literature, art, and thought. The new literature in the Elizabethan age was centered on the crown. And for which L.G. Salinger, professor, Cambridge University, has given a comment by Shakespeare's lifetime. You can take it down, note it down. By Shakespeare's lifetime, 1564 to 1616, a gentleman of any ambition needed some accomplishment in languages and literature. Full stop. The new, humanist culture matured during Shakespeare's youth. Full stop. It is reflected in the Roman and Mediterranean settings of the drama, and the character studies of princes, wits and gallants, or, again, in the immense new vocabulary of the poets, classical or foreign by derivation. Inverted comma ends. L.G. Salinger, Salinger, professor, Cambridge University. Now we can go to the detailed study on Elizabethan literary works. The Elizabethan literary language, especially with professional writers like Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, John Lilly, Thomas Kidd, George Peele, Robert Greene, and Thomas Nash, the so-called university wits, is addressed to a mixed public more trained in listening than in reading, and more accustomed to group life than to personal life or privacy. Elizabethan writings are supreme in expressing sensation and outward demonstrative aspects of feeling. During Elizabethan period, apart from the dramatists, there are other writers also. Sir Philip Sidney, 1554 to 1586, Edmund Spenser, 1552 to 1599, were also writing or producing literature other than drama. And the patriarchal sonnets of 1990s were also popular during those days. Machiavelli and Bacon, the essayists, Chapman 1559 to 1634, Neoplatonism, with Neoplatonism theory, also produced prose and other creative writings during this period. Drama was the chief form of Elizabethan art. Like music, the second national medium, drama was a communal art admitting personal virtuosity, a high degree of performance. A tradition of entertainment in the form of festival, communal celebration of communal events, accounts for many prominent features of Elizabethan plays. And the central theme of Elizabethan literature is the clash between the individuals and the claims of social order. And if we will go to the history of drama in the world, then we can assume that drama was in the form of some chorus or preaching of religious holy people in the church, basically in the Christian community, in the Christian era. And by the way, when people, common people, were attracted towards this dialogues, preaching, and chorus, and were gathered more and more to enjoy it, it was not possible to perform these acts inside the church. And it was shifted to church courtyard. And when more and more people joined to observe and to enjoy, it was shifted to the public place, like the open ground near the city or in any locality. And then in the ancient literature like French, Greek, and Roman literature, we find the development of drama. And after that, during Elizabethan period, the dramatists like the university wits, Shakespeare, Marlowe, and other playwrights started writing in English. And still then, some of the writings of ancient literature like Greek, French, and Roman were also translated to make it stage fit to perform on the stage, the dramas. And a large number of dramas were written by Shakespeare. So, most of the people, most of the critics, they have entitled the Elizabethan age as the age of Shakespeare. Shakespeare must have been the most prosperous of the dramatists, but then Shakespeare was also a principal actor and sharer. Sharer means the theatre in which the plays were performed was also partially managed by Shakespeare. The Globe Theatre or London Theatre, he was the shareholder in most of the theatres. The poets of the popular stage were also representatives of humanism from Marlowe to Shakespeare, Johnson, Chapman, and Webster. But this phase of the relation between the writer and the public came to an end as national feeling divided under James I after the reign of Queen Elizabeth. The actors were both drawn and driven towards dependence on the court, and in 1960, Shakespeare's company began to concentrate on their private theatre, the Blackfriars, than the popular theatre Globe. Then came Beaumont and Fletcher, the newcomers, the rising of professional dramatists. Along with the dramatists or playwrights, the presence of Bacon and Donne, essayist and poet, in their different ways gave a new life to the tradition of Renaissance. During Renaissance, the formation of society,
Good morning,
especially the
sir.
role of yes.
Sir, which part is starting now?
You just entered now.
Yes, sir.
Elizabethan drama, the reign of during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, 1558 to 1625. Development of English drama during the reign of Queen Elizabeth.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Continue. You can also note down the things I am telling. Very briefly, I am telling. The presence of Bacon, essayist, Donne, the poet, in their different ways also gave a new shape to the tradition of Renaissance. And during Renaissance, which was also started just before the reign of Queen Elizabeth, during the reign of Henry VIII, 1529 to 1539, and after 1500, Renaissance started in Europe, and the major role was played by the English writers. And they provided a new thought, new sensitiveness, and created a new atmosphere among the literary persons, educated persons, and wise men, which was reflected in the society, and the reformation of society during the Renaissance started. The importance of court and city, the role of court and city was important during Renaissance. Essayists like Bacon, the poet like John Donne, continued the main tradition of Renaissance, so-called Renaissance humanism. And they marked the beginning of a new age. Now, we'll go to the course, Christopher Marlowe and the Elizabethan drama. The objectives of this chapter, Christopher Marlowe and the Elizabethan drama, represents the rise and popularization of British drama under the pioneership of Christopher Marlowe, who was writing plays just before Sir William Shakespeare, and we can take him as the predecessor, who has shown the path of English drama to most of the English playwrights of the Elizabethan period, Elizabethan age. And though his life was very short, his creations were also very limited, only 5 to 6 plays to or something like that, poems, long poems, and also some chorus and small poems. So, and also some translations from the ancient literature. Babita, you came now. Hello. Yes. Christopher Marlowe played a vital role in shaping the English drama with from two angles, with two visions, that is the comedy and tragedy. Introduction of comedy and tragedy in English drama was the foundation stone of comedy, English comedy and tragedy was led by Christopher Marlowe. Moreover, this unit focuses on the development of Elizabethan comedy and tragedy as a whole, which draws the attention of the Elizabethan public during those days towards the perfection and presentation of the great dramatists who have rendered their meritorious services for the better entertainment and amusement of their people. Their lifetime achievement is proved successful for cultural aspirations to draw the sensitivity of the Elizabethan audience or spectators. People in the beginning of the Elizabethan era liked much to enjoy the comedy rather than tragedy. And during those days, tragedy means the feeling of the people that any social murder, accident, death, any thrilling event in the society, better to say the tragic elements. Tragic elements, the activities happened or performed in the society. And when the people, common people, came to enjoy a play on tragedy, from the very beginning, they were becoming more sensitive and also.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Namaskar. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. What is the particular dating or period of Elizabeth age?
Particular period of
Elizabeth age.
we are discussing about the Victorian period. Drama in, Elizabethan period.
Sir, 1558 to 1603 or 25?
That is 1558 to 1625.
1625.
25.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Reign of Elizabeth was 1558 to 1603. But the age continued up to 1625.
Sir, thank you.
Okay. So though in the beginning comedy was popular, but by the way, when different types of plays were performed by the great dramatists like the university wits, Marlowe, Shakespeare, John Lilly, Green, George Peele, kid, Thomas Nash, the English drama became popular. And also, people tried to like the tragedies which were written in such a manner when the show was beginning, automatically the spectators were attached to the scenes, dialogues, and acting of the players. So gradually, comedy also became popular. And the perfection and presentation of the great dramatists, and some of them were also acting in those dramas, like Marlowe and Shakespeare, to make it more alive and to make it more heart-touching, and also to create a living atmosphere on the stage. Of course, if we will go to the old theaters in England, there was no screen, only by taking some properties like branches of trees, a barrel of oil, or a table, and some properties, small properties like knife, and with some royal dresses, the dress of a king or queen, or servant, or some other characters. With very limited properties, dramas were staged during those days. And the spectators had to spread their imagination. They had to imagine that this is a jungle scene, or this is a court scene, or this is the scene of a palace, or street, or river bank, or something like that. They have to imagine. And which imagination of the English people gave birth in latter days romanticism. In the latter part of 18th century, 17th century. And this imagination of the spectators played also a vital role in the English drama. They could be able to imagine the scene and the happening from the dialogues of the players. And as dramatists, Marlowe and Shakespeare tried their best to convince the people what is going on the stage, what is the situation, and how they can touch the heart of the spectators, audience, to make it a perfect performance of the play. And their lifetime achievement of the great playwrights was also proved successful from the cultural point of view, entertainment of the public, and to draw the attention of the Elizabethan audience. Now we will go to the introduction of our topic, Christopher Marlowe and the Elizabethan drama. Elizabethan literary age is welcomed as the age of Shakespeare, though Shakespeare has produced a large number of plays and of different taste, 2 long poems, and many more sonnets. The sonnets, which were also put in the plays according to the situation, according to the condition of the play. Most of the sonnets were inserted, attached to the plays. Till the beginning of the tragic play in Elizabethan age was made by Christopher Marlowe, who was the predecessor of Sir William Shakespeare. Though they were of one age, one time, and also both were born in 1564. And Christopher Marlowe was only 2 months senior to Shakespeare. But he was the first man to start writing poems, plays, and also translations from the ancient literature. So most of the critics, they admit it and also agree with the proposal that it was Christopher Marlowe who laid the foundation stone of English drama in a proper design, in a proper shape during Elizabethan period. And the tragic plays of Marlowe were more popular and famous, and also
Spelling of Christopher Marlowe?
Christopher Marlowe,
Yes, sir.
Christopher, Christopher Marlowe, Marlowe. You have not received your notes?
No, sir. Till now, I have no any notes. I just see the sites and collect something.
Suchismita, you are telling?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can download it from the internet, from the
Yes, sir.
website of IGNOU.
Yes, sir.
Now you just joined. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So in the introductory chapter, we can also extend our discussion on the beginning of the trend of tragic play in English during Elizabethan age. And the chief pioneer was Christopher Marlowe. He successfully started or began the turns of ideas and the dramatic form in English style, because though drama was successfully written and performed in Greece, Rome, France, and some other places of the world, which is so-called the ancient literature, and also in Sanskrit in India. Because in India there are also two famous, Nalanda and Takshashila, two famous universities in which or where students from the entire world were taught Sanskrit, Veda, Upanishad, and all those Indian cultures. Also, there were some ancient plays written in Sanskrit. And also, you will be astonished to know that in some of the foreign countries, like England and Europe, students are also have taken up the research work on the Sanskrit literature, Veda and Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and so on. From the time of T.S. Eliot, he has entered into this trend of learning Sanskrit. Anyway, those were the ancient literatures of the world. The Greek literature, Roman, Latin, French, and so on and so on. Though before some centuries, better we say, the shape of drama was made by some ancient writers. Traditionally, since 5th century BC, when the Athenian dramatists, Greek dramatists were writing plays. And also, most of them were performed on the stage. And the tradition shifted to England when, during the Renaissance, or in the beginning of the reign of Queen Elizabeth, who was a great patron of art and culture, literature, language, and, better to say, wisdom. And likewise, with the writings of Christopher Marlowe and along with him, the university wits, including Sir William Shakespeare, tragedy and comedy played a vital role in English literature and also produced before for entertainment of the Elizabethan public, Elizabethan audience. The beginnings of tragedy is to be found in ancient Greece. During the 5th century BC, the great Athenian dramatists Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides wrote tragedies of a power and beauty that has never been equaled. Most of their plays still exist, and some of them are still performed in the modern European theatre, English theatre, and also in some other parts of the world.
Hello, sir. Sir, what are the major differences between Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe?
You can. Pari is speaking.
Yes, sir.
What do you want?
Sir, actually, what are the differences between Christopher Marlowe and Shakespeare? Major differences.
Difference is that Christopher Marlowe was the first man to write English plays in the design and style of the ancient dramas. because he was a translator, he was thoroughly reading the ancient literatures, Greek literature, French literature, Italy, Rome, and I don't know whether he was reading Sanskrit or not, but T.S. Eliot was reading Sanskrit.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, actually, I think another difference is there. Christopher Marlowe has written 5 plays, and all these are tragedies. But Shakespeare has written more plays, and
No, I shall go to that. I shall go to that stage.
Okay, sir.
For some time.
He has written also
The difference is
comic
that
plays.
the foundation stone of tragedy,
Okay.
English tragedy, was laid by Christopher Marlowe.
Christopher Marlowe, yeah.
Though they were of same age, same time, but first the preliminary or the the beginning of the life of Shakespeare was something different. I shall also narrate you how hazardous, how full of sorrows and sufferings.
Yes, full of sorrow.
Shakespeare was. But also, Marlowe was not a son of a rich man. He was also a son of a very poor fellow. When we will go to his life history, we will discuss. But till then, he was, from the very beginning of his life, he was determined to create something. Creativeness or sensitiveness with much firm determination, he started writing. And also he was murdered at the age of 39 for us, because he was a secret agent of the government, and he was murdered by one of his friends in an inn when they were drinking and dining. Anyway, the difference between Christopher Marlowe and Shakespeare is that they were born in one year, 1564. And Christopher Marlowe is only 2 months elder than Shakespeare. But the childhood till his youth, Shakespeare was in a very hazardous condition. His life was not stable. Even he was driven out of England. And he was accused of poaching deer in some state. He traveled in ships in different places of Europe. Verona, Venice, France, Switzerland. So many countries he visited in his lifetime. And the picture of different European society is reflected in his plays. When he visited Verona, he wrote Romeo and Juliet. Even nowadays, at present, if you will go to Verona, you will find the statue of Juliet, which was established in those days in the memory of Romeo and Juliet, the famous Shakespearean play. And if you will go to the city of boats or city of canals, Venice, which is called Venezia in Italic terms, you will also find some footprints of Shakespeare, some monuments in the city of Venice, where he has written The Merchant of Venice. Anyway, I had the opportunity to go to visit these places. And if you will go, you will still find, or you will feel the presence of Shakespeare in those lands through his play. And some historical monuments you will also find remembering Shakespeare. In those places, Shakespeare visited time to time. and left his footprint on those lands. And though Marlowe was only 2 months senior to Shakespeare, but he started writing in an early age. When he was graduated from, he was taken up the graduation studies in Cambridge. After leaving the grammar school from his town, from his place, he started writing. And he got very limited time in his life to produce something great. And only with limited production of only 5 to 6 plays. He has shared also with Thomas Nash or somebody like that. We'll discuss later. During his academic and writing professional career. And they had to starve him because the writers were not sufficiently fed during those days. Still, their writings, their dramas were patronized by Queen Elizabeth in a later stage. And who got the benefit? Sir William Shakespeare, who lived a long life, 1616 up to, he enjoyed the status and the wealth, money of a playwright. When one of his play was exhibited in the court of Queen Elizabeth, and Shakespeare got the royal recognition and became a bona fide English playwright and actor. But much before his writing, Christopher Marlowe has started producing English literature with the help of the ancient literature. From most of his translations, we find that he was a successful translator and can adapt the literary feelings, literary terms, literary position, literary status from yes. Okay. Have patience and listen what I am trying to explain regarding the difference between Christopher Marlowe and Sir William Shakespeare. Anyway, Christopher Marlowe couldn't enjoy his life as a dramatist or as an actor successfully because of his premature death. But Shakespeare enjoyed it because he was his writings, his play, his acting, his productions were patronized by the Queen, and he got royal recognition. And now we can go back to the tragedy, the beginning of the tragedy in the world. The Trojan women of Euripides and the King Oedipus of Sophocles are exciting and terrible plays ever played on the modern stage even nowadays, as these were profound in Athens 24 centuries ago. So the force, the capacity, and the dignity of all those ancient tragedies which were produced 24 centuries ago in Greek and Athens, French and Rome, till now it is accepted and enjoyed by the modern audience. A Greek tragedy had unity of action. What we find in the Elizabethan stage, and some two aspects were added by Shakespeare. There is the unity of time, place, and action. But the unity of action was started in Greece, in ancient tragedies. That was, it had one story and only one. When the sense of tragedy comes to our mind, we remind of three chief expressions of tragedy, experiments of tragedy. And Aristotle, Chaucer, and Hegel, who were the exponents of ancient tragedy. Aristotle, from 384 to 322 BC, wrote a little book now popular as the Poetics, into which he put some of his thoughts about literature in general and tragedy in particular. When the public questioned Aristotle why he put tragedy in his writings, in his plays, the answer of Aristotle was certain emotions, especially, you can take it, note it down, certain emotions, comma, especially the emotions of pity and fear, comma, do not get used enough in civilized life. To stop. One of the effects of tragedy is to stir up, STIR, stir up these emotions so that they flow away from us like the waste products of our body after purgation, PURGATION. To stop. As a whole, comma, to watch a tragedy is a sort of psychological medicine. Full stop. In post-Freudian jargon, Freudin, Freudian jargon, Freudian theory, in past Freudian jargon, comma, it helps to make us free of inhibition, INHIBITIONS, inhibitions. So it was the reply of Aristotle that we have to stir up the emotions in a tragedy. We have to imagine, that I have already discussed about you, about the old stage. Like the modern age, there was no scope to exhibit or to show the audience different scenes. And also we find, even in our old theaters in India, we used to make screens of different scenes, painting in the background of the stage. Even during those days, it was not possible. Only to represent a forest, a few branches were put on the stage, to represent an inn, a barrel of wine was put on the stage, and like that, a table or a chair, the court scene or the scene of a, and the blank stage represents the empty road, etc., etc. So the audience has to create his imagination, create his sensitiveness, create his emotion, and 100% to involve his mind and heart with the play, with the drama, by fixing his eyes on the stage uninterruptedly. Then one can enjoy the play by entering into it. This was the suggestion of Aristotle regarding the watching and enjoying a tragedy. The idea of tragedy as a moral story to show the falseness of human power and wealth is a very old one. It is not only seen in stories of ancient Greece, but also in Christian and Jewish history and legend. In tragedy, however, things are less simple. The conflict in between two rights. Two rights means right or wrong, or claim. Two rights mean two claims. The quarrel starts for property, for power, for any social achievement, and as a result, murder happens, treachery happens, or snatching away of properties or kingdom happens. And one must have to lose something, and one must have to gain something. And this is the background of the tragedy. What is found in all ages, even in the modern age. Now we will go to the life and works of Christopher Marlowe, because we have already discussed a lot about the origin of tragedy and the Elizabethan drama. If you want more, you can also go through some books, books of references. You will get from your notes from the IGNOU. Now, we will go to the life of Christopher Marlowe, which was very short, of only 29 years. And how he became famous, how he became great with the production of the plays like Dr. Faustus, Tamburlaine, and some other plays. Just before the beginning of the Elizabethan era, there was a conflict between the group of people having the classical tradition and another group of people who wanted to insist upon the strong national taste of English public. In all ages, also in the history of the world, we find always there is conflict or difference of opinion between two groups, traditionals and moderates. Traditionals, the group of traditional people, they don't want to give up their tradition and to lead a life of traditional life. as their fathers, grandfathers, great grandfathers were reading. But another group of people, they want change. Change of their life, change of their social pattern, change of their atmosphere, change of their literature, change of their art, architecture, etc. So always we find in each and every age, there is a class between the traditional and the moderates. And likewise, before the Elizabethan age, during the reign of Henry VIII till 1539, there was a conflict. But gradually, when Queen Elizabeth came to power, and she wanted to change over, she wanted to make the life of English people more modernized, and by leaving the traditional life behind, she wanted to the development of art, architecture, culture, literature, and better we say, establish the wisdom in English society. As a result of this conflict, the national taste on the traditionals failed. The moderates won the battle, and just before Shakespeare began his career as a playwright, the romantic form of drama and the real taste of tragedy was definitely established, and established by some university wits like Christopher Marlowe. The trend was started by the group of eminent writers of Elizabethan age, so-called the university wits: John Lilly, Thomas Kidd, George Peele, Robert Greene, Christopher Marlowe, Thomas Nash, and, by the way, Sir William Shakespeare. Christopher Marlowe, John Lilly possesses a special significance, and they exerted a direct influence upon Shakespeare to write plays and to make it more popular. Not only Shakespeare, but also Christopher Marlowe, they had to take a very hardship. They had to make hard labor to make the English drama popular, and for which they themselves were acting on the stage to draw the attention, draw the feelings, draw the sensitiveness, draw the liking of the audience in order to make English play successful and to provide the English people entertainment with full of judgment, full of feelings, full of sensitiveness. In a practical sense, to make the public life a perfect one. Thus, Christopher Marlowe was the greatest predecessors of Sir William Shakespeare. He is also regarded and honored by so many great critics, even of the modern age, as the founder of the English theatre, founder of the English drama. He was born in 1564, 2 months before the birth of Sir William Shakespeare. In the town of Canterbury. The town of Canterbury has become famous during those days because Geoffrey Chaucer has written a series of stories with the title The Canterbury Tales. So in such a famous literary town, Christopher Marlowe was born. So perhaps the place itself had an impact on his life and career to make him a successful dramatist in a very short span of life. Being a son of a poor shoemaker, his father was a shoemaker making shoes at home, because modern industry during those days has not developed in England. Primarily, he was educated in his local Canterbury Grammar School, and then he went to Cambridge, prestigious Cambridge University, to be graduated at the age of 19. At the age of 19, he was graduated from Cambridge University. Like Shakespeare, he was also an actor, because the writers were not so well fed during those days. There was no publication houses, there was no press printing facility. So only by taking manuscripts, they have to prepare dramas. And the owners of the playhouses, they were giving very low price for the writing of plays. So the writers, they had to play a double role. First they will write, then they will act on the stage. In order to make their writings more alive, more heart-touching, more sensitive, they themselves had to act on the stage, utter the dialogues they have written previously, and draw the attention of the audience, of the public. This dual role had some advantages also, because they were also not only the actors, but also they are also directors, because those script writers, like nowadays in the cinemas, we find the script writers and also the dialogue writers, they play a vital role in making a cinema or a drama successful. Nowadays, different people are doing all those different works. Script writer is different, dialogue writer is different, and director is different. Directors are also categorized: dance director, music director. Yes, Manaswini, you are from now. Make it clear. Okay. So we have to make a good idea, better convincing idea about the stage, about the drama, about the acting, about the reception, about the performance, about the acceptance of the audience, by which you can have the feeling to understand to follow, to get by heart, to be convinced about the writings of the great writers, their tragedies, their comedies. After being educated in a grammar school, he entered into Cambridge University at the age of 19. And also, during his graduation period, he started writing. Being inspired in theater, he started writing plays, and in 1587, at the age of 23, he wrote his first play, Tamberlane, which brought him instant recognition as a playwright. Though English literature during those days was in its infancy, translations were made in a large number. Translations from the ancient literatures into English. Greek, French, Roman, Latin literature were in a large number translated by the English people in order to enrich, to make the English literature more rich and more popular. Because English people were very clever, for which they expanded their empire into so many lands. Scotland, Ireland, America, India, and so many lands they have conquered, where sun is never set in British Empire. Anyway, with the social historical background of the English achievement, but during the Elizabethan era, during his wretched life, Christopher Marlowe remained loyal to a high literary purpose and in a very few time, within 5 years, when William Shakespeare was in his apprenticeship, just he was acting in some plays and rewriting plays from other languages into English to make it stage fit English for English audience. When Shakespeare was busy in his apprenticeship, Christopher Marlowe started writing powerful plays. He produced all his best works, 5 tragedies, a number of poems and translations. But he was the victim of many powerful persons of the heathen English society, as he was working as a secret agent for the government. And some writers also agree with this, that he was murdered for the same. Because earning money was too difficult during those days, only writing literature, creating literature, producing literary productions, one cannot arrange money for livelihood. So the writer has to engage himself in some other work and likewise he was a secret agent of the government, acting or working as a secret agent for the government, and for which he was the enemy of so many powerful people. Thus, he was killed at the tender age of 29. Still, his four major plays, Tamburlaine, 1587, The Tragic History of Dr. Faustus, 1586, published, The Jew of Malta, 1589, Edward II, 1591, and The Massacre in Paris, 1592. Another play he had written in collaboration with Thomas Nass, that is Dido, Queen of Carthage, 1593. It was published. After the death of Christopher Marlowe. Edward II, which was published in 1591, had a vast biblical and classical scholarship, a rebellious spirit and poetic imagination. Marlowe marks the end of an adolescent phase in English drama and begins its production as a mature tragedy. He was a landmark in Renaissance humanism and the revival of the fascinating classical learning and literature. He is considered by the modern critics as a significant part of still greater tradition of the Elizabethan drama, tragedy in particular. Because his plays were basically primarily based on tragedy. Because his life was full of tragedy. From his own personal feelings, he could able to estimate the English social life, and as per his own experience and experiment, his pen was moved towards the tragic events to produce tragedies. Marlowe's classical acquirements were of a kind based on the most part of a close acquaintance with the Roman mythology as revealed in Ovid's Metamorphoses. You can take it down. Marlowe's classical acquirements were of a kind based on the most part of a close acquaintance with Roman mythology as revealed in Ovid's Metamorphoses, Metamorphoses. His created transaction of the first book of Lucan his first spirited transaction, which was a translation of great ancient literature. The first book of Lucan, printed in 1600 after his death. The Ovid's Amors, Ovids, capital AMORES, printed in 1596 at Cambridge. These writings, these translations were also followed by his another translation, Hero and Leander, L-A-N-D-E-R. He was also a classical poet, producing a good number of classical poems based on classical themes. The Hero and the Leander, published in 1592, was a poem. And it is also said that two of his famous plays, Dido, Queen of Carthage, 1593, and A Massacre in Paris, 1593, were written in collaboration with Thomas Nash. And still then, some plays of Marlowe were left as manuscripts, could not be published. Apart from drama, the Renaissance movement was in its peak with these types of literary creations, activities, as the highest point of English poetry. Apart from it, Marlowe has ever produced one of the finest lyrics in English language. The passionate shepherd to his love. P-A-S-S-O-N-A-T, passionate shepherd, S-H-E-P-H-E-R-D, to his love. The passionate shepherd to his love. A poem with pure fancy and radiant ideology and melody, sweetness and melodious. Apart from all those things, we can evaluate Marlowe as a dramatist. The growth of Marlowe's dramatic genius may be traced by considering each of his plays separately. Nothing is more characteristic of Marlowe than his choice of his first hero. His imagination was fired by the story of the life of the great adventurer who from a mere shepherd became the most powerful man in the whole world. Cumberland seemed to Marlowe a superman to whom the petty rules of morality didn't apply. In the play, as a tragic symbol, we find Cumberland killing so many people, from children to grown-up men and women. Laughing at the blood, he says, imprisoning and defeated emperors in cages, having his chariot drawn by the kings, burning town in honor of the funeral of his wife. Tragedy in its last part, creating horror, terror on the stage, making the audience speechless, astonished with the terrible scenes. And he transfigures him by exalting his barbaries in the highest level. And also, at the same time, he has added flavor, the flavor of love, the flavor of romance. That has been included in the next phase of the play. Tamburlaine becomes a lover. And he lays the earth at the feet of his genocrat, beloved. When death snatches her away from him, he threatens heaven with his fury, as if like that of the legendary characters of our Ravana and consort. He will go to attack on heaven. Why Yamaraj has taken away his beloved. And these practical ups and downs of the play, that's the tragic play more sensitive, more heart-touching. And likewise, if when we will go to is another play, Dr. Faustus. The composition of Dr. Faustus deals with a new thought. And Dr. Faustus places his soul to the devil in return for supreme knowledge and supreme power. It is something like the use of supernatural elements, like St. Coleridge in the Romantic Age. The appearance, placement of those supernatural elements was first introduced by Marlowe, which was taken over by Shakespeare in his Hamlet, Tempest, and some other plays. The appearance of ghost, the activities of a ghost, terrible, and create horror on the stage. Likewise, Dr. Faustus invites some supernatural elements to be more powerful. And also the dialogues, in the dialogues of Dr. Faustus, we find he becomes more enthusiastic, more passionate to acquire power and position. and to use a devil, tries to use a devil to fulfill his desire. Of course, we find some farcical elements, farcical uh, activities in the play. It is believed that these were not the work of Marlowe himself, but he has taken the idea from some other literatures, from other works, or the help of his university books. When Dr. Foster's thinks of supreme power, how to get rid of all those superpowers. In the same time, we find Marlowe imagining supreme beauty in the character of Dr. Faustus, how to make it more alive, how to make it more sensitive, how to make it more stage fit for the public, for the English audience. With incomparable lyricism, he also adds some songs which is later published as poems, like that of the sonnets of Shakespeare. Which were the most pathetic and very heart-touching in Renaissance theatre, and also accepted very cordially by the Renaissance audience. And along with all those noble qualities, Marlowe has also produced some plays and poems of different taste. And at last, he is incapable of completing his masterpieces. And takes the help of his university wits, his friends. Even after his death, few writings of Marlowe was completed and published. And the trend of his writing plays and poems and translations are richest gift to the world literature as well as English literature. He was a guide, philosopher, and friend of his friend of the university wits, including Shakespeare. He has paved the way of the tradition of writing plays, how to make it stage fit, how to produce it before the audience successfully, and how to draw the attention of the English public towards their writings. This tradition was followed by his friends, and later, in a later stage, Sir William Shakespeare would able to prove himself as the greatest dramatist of the world. His next play, The Jews of Malta, though a melodrama, it contains passages of lyrical power. Like in our own country, in India. Of course, there were ancient writings, ancient plays, ancient stories, ancient even essays in Sanskrit literature. Because Sanskrit is as old as Greek literature. Or some says that it was produced before the Greek production of Greek literature or French literature. Ancient than the Greek literature. Whether it was written by God himself. Anyway, Jews of Malta, in Jews of Malta, Marlowe has expressed and exhibited and shown his lyrical power, which was a melodrama. Melodrama means that is like our Gitinatya, the farce of Vastampani in Odia language and literature we find. The beginning of the Odia drama. Anyway, anyhow, we have to depend on our predecessors. While producing something and creating something, we have to choose the path of our ancestors. And I have already told you that the beginning of the drama in the world was started from the church. The preaching, the sayings of Christ in the voice of the fathers, monks in the church, in the form of dialogues. Whatever it may be, out of the faith on religion or faith on Jesus Christ, or out of passion, people were gathering in the church, and the frame of drama was established, came into existence. The Jew on which life the play Jew of Malta is written, Jew Barabbas, having been unjustly deprived of his property by the Christians. In old days, we find a huge number of cases between the class, between the fighting of the class between the Jews and the Christians. The Jews are demanding that they are older than Christians, and their faith, their religion is something different from the Christians. So they demand themselves superior in the society, whereas Christians demand themselves more powerful, more superior. The very class of Jews and Christians we find in also Merchant of Venice of Shakespeare, but the theory was introduced by Christopher Marlowe in the Jew of Malta. And the Jew becomes furious and takes up tries to commit crimes, extraordinary series of crimes, to achieve his success, to regain his properties, and yet it is more terrible in the play. Before the Jew becomes criminal mania, he has both dignity and greatness. Enormously rich, he is first seen with the heaps of gold before him. And he was declaring that he was intoxicated with his wealth and power, immense power. But in the next phase, we find him deprived of his property by the Christians and becomes furious and starts criminal activities. Before the death of Christopher Marlowe, he produced Edward II, which is the best of his tragedies of English national history, written before the works of Shakespeare. This play has quality which are properly dramatic and are not to be found in any Marlowe's other plays. Powerful activity of a monarch and written in a royal base. Also, the lyrical declamation, the lyrical aspects we find in Tamburlaine is never found in other plays, even in the Shakespearean plays. The blank verse, use of blank verse, use of melody is another characteristic of Marlowe's writings. Characterization of Marlowe's characters are so powerfully woven and so neatly entangled in the play that has remained as the finest example for his successors. And as a mirror of the society, Marlowe has exhibited and also has taken up the writing skill to remain as the example for all ages to come. That's all about the activities, literary activities of Marlowe. Now, we can go to the references. Harry Levin, Hrrylevin, Harry Levin. Levin's book, Marlowe Today. published in 1963-64. Number 2, E.P. Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N, Wilson, The English Drama, 1485 to 1585, Oxford, Clarendon Press, 1969. Aristotle quoted in translation from Poetics in Collier's Encyclopedia, C-O-L-L-I-E-R, Encyclopedia. E.B. Tomlinson, Tomlinson, A Study of Elizabethan and Jacobean Tragedy, Cambridge University Press, published in 1964. Again, Harry Levin, H-R-R-Y-L-E-V-I-N, Harry Levin, capital L. The Overreacher, The Study of Christopher Marlowe, Becon's Press, B-E-A-C-O-N, Becon's Press, published in 1952. The keywords Reformation and Renaissance, already we have discussed. Reformation was made after Henry VIII, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth. Another important thing is 7 deadly sins. 7 deadly sins are found in Bible. Classification of sins found in the works of Christian theologians. The sins are pride, avarice, lust, anger, gluttony, envy, sloth. These sins are essentially viewed as acts of rebellion against God. Cardinal virtues, the principal moral qualities that determine man's goodness, which are prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude. The fourfold classification goes back to the classical philosophy, and the questions we can get. Trace the growth of English tragedy. Trace the growth of English tragedy. Critically examine the role of Renaissance in the growth of the Elizabethan drama. Point out the elements of Aristotelian tragedy in the Elizabethan drama. These are things. In the next class, we will switch about
Yes,
to.
sir.
Yes.
This is Manasmita here. Sir, I have a
Hmm.
doubt regarding our assignment. Here is a question. Discuss the characters of this Dr. Foster's as a tragic figure. What are the main process to write this assignment? And can we add some dialogues in our answers from Dr. Foster's?
The time is already going to be over. In the next class, we will discuss about in details when we will go to Dr. Foster's.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, any other question? We will go to the Greek origin tragedy. We have already discussed. Aristotle definition of tragedy will go. Elizabethan formulation of tragedy. Senecan influence. Growth of Elizabethan theatre. Elizabethan comedy. Rise of Elizabethan comedy and tragedy. Miracle, mysterious plays, morality plays. Discuss in the next class. Any doubt regarding our discussions? Very slowly and clearly, I have already discussed the things. You might have noted it down. Suggested reading also, you can take some books. An Introduction to Tudor Drama. Oxford University Press, Clarendon Press, 1993. In which you will get a survey of the growth of English stage through the schools, universities, inns, courts, the royal court, with a special focus on the biographical plays and the poetic tragedies of Christopher Marlowe. Very good book. And another, A Literary History of the Renaissance, Volume 2. Drucker Brook and Matthias A. Saber. Published in 1967 by Albert C. Bach, edited by Albert C. Bach, New York. In which you will get the discusses Renaissance literature in England, surveys the religious purpose, the Elizabethan lyric, verse, prose, narrative of the time, Elizabethan comedy and tragedy, Edmund Spenser, Christopher Marlowe, William Shakespeare, Jacobean drama, Caroline drama, and the 17th century poetry. Number 3, reference you can take. Harry Levin, Marlowe Today, Drama Review, published in 1963-64, an assessment and a tribute to Marlowe on his 400th anniversary. 400th anniversary, Marlowe Today. In which book you will also get the requisite wanting.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you give some hints on mystery and miracle plays?
We'll discuss in the next class. Miracle
Okay,
play,
sir.
mysterious play, morality play, everything we'll discuss in the next class.
Okay, sir.
And also Elizabethan drama, religious beginning, the influence of church, the influence of religion, which was also a base of Queen Elizabeth's rule. Queen Elizabeth also believing on Christianity. She also wanted that what we will do in our administration, in our work, in our activity, everything should be guided by God. And also in the mercy of God, in the direction of God, we will do everything. These are the faith of Queen Elizabeth, which was also reflected in her age. That is Elizabethan age. Elizabethan reflected in the Elizabethan literature, society, Elizabethan social life, and this religious beginning we also find in Elizabethan drama. Any more question? Students, whether you are satisfied or we have got all the requisite or your what you want, you have got through this class or not?
Yes, sir. We are satisfied.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank
The
you,
time
sir.
is going to be over. Only 2 to 3 minutes is there. You can add something to your learning process. More elaborately, we will discuss from tomorrow. There is the first class, and I will to face some problem in connecting the. Okay, thank you all. Yeah, better wait for that. Oh, contact. That